Good evening and welcome yet again to another edition of Quirky Bedtime Stories. I'm glad you're here. And I hope that listening to this new story plus linked yoga nidra and chirpy sounds will help you to fall asleep in the most natural and uncomplicated manner. And if not, well, then at least we've tried, right? So we have a green screen behind me. Not sure how that's going to work. It may just be green for the duration. We shall find out. So anyway, this story this evening, or whenever you listen to it, is about a common experience that we've all had, perhaps, if we are lucky enough to have a full set of pearly whites unblemished by cavities, then we'll have never experienced this, but that is a rarity. Most of us have been at some stage to a dentist and had to use the services of a dentist, either through regular checkups, also a rarity, or through emergency or misuse. Who knows? Anyway, let's jump right in and see what this story avails itself of. The other day, as I found myself yet again in the waiting room at the local dentist, I began looking back in my time at my unfortunate past. Certainly unfortunate as far as dental health is concerned. I would say that over the years that I have graced this blessed orb, my teeth have undergone massive transformations. Yes, that's a plural. And I'm sure that I have unwittingly supported many a mineral venture with the amount of foreign amalgam that has been cemented to my jawbone. Long gone are the milk teeth of youth. Long gone also are most of the teeth that had replaced them. I'm reminded at this stage of my brother, after a lifetime of drinking sweetened soda, colas and whatever, had all of his decayed teeth removed, and now he sports a fine set of acrylic choppers. They give him a nice pearly smile when he grins, but his face caves in when he removes his teeth for the night. Not for me, that kind of thing. Nope. Not for me. I'm thinking that it seems that the folk who become dentists are either those who have failed at becoming medical doctors, are sadists, or have taken a completely wrong turn in life and find themselves looking down others' throats the entire working day, instead of pursuing whatever youthful dream they once aspired to. Perhaps one has to be an embittered failure in order to qualify for entry into Dentistry 101, if such a course exists. Perhaps those who become dentists are of the same ilk as those who used to take pleasure in inflicting pain on others in their youth. None of my friends are dentists. My experience with dentists seems to be par for the course, unfortunately. long periods of waiting in deathly silent anterooms, the whine of the high-speed drill heard through the walls, heart palpitations brought about by tension and anxiety, and more tension on being admitted to the surgery and walking the few steps past the ever-present smiling assistant with the bouffant hairdo, to finally arrive at the ubiquitous plastic-covered comfy chair. Why do we dread this experience so? I'm not sure if this is still the case, but in New Zealand, in the healthcare system there, they provide free dental services to elementary age students in an effort to improve the dental health of the up-and-coming generation. Sadly, though, the effect of this policy was to instill fear and dread in the young hearts and minds of the up-and-coming generation. The school dental clinic was referred to as the murder house. And when the dental nurse was in session, she would send a note to the homeroom teacher to summon her next victim to the chair. As an immigrant to the land of the long white cloud, Aotearoa, I had absolutely no inkling of what all the fuss and bother was about. I remember looking at my new friends and classmates with bewilderment and wondering at the sudden look of shock and fear that appeared on their faces once their summons came. Ruddy redness instantly gone and replaced with pallid, sweaty fear. I did find this gem on the web, giving the reasoning behind this free service. And I quote directly. It is to the children of the present day and of the future generation that we look to repair the wastage of this terrible war. And it behoves us to see that they're given a fair chance to develop clean and wholesome bodies, without which any nation must go to the wall, as said by the New Zealand Dental Association President, Mr. N. Mitchell, in 1921. Of course, the intent was to benefit the population, and of course the effect was positive when compared to the state of health of the general population in wartime. So too are the advances in care that are obvious from the descriptions of the current incarnation of the service. I'm not entirely sure, though, which wall Mr. Mitchell was referring to back in 1921, but it did remind me of another one later in time penned by Roger Waters from Pink Floyd. You may recall the song. Anyway, a précis of my first experience. The nurse was pleasant. The clinic was clean. The chair was comfortable. The pain intolerable. Up to this point, I do remember having had some interactions with dentists, but not really being able to recall much in the way of detail. I guess I may have blocked out all that pain, or maybe not. Maybe it's still there somewhere in the depths of my consciousness. But that suggests, though, that the experience may not have been pleasant, but it was certainly not trauma-inducing. At the crux of this matter, though, was the fact that dental nurses at that time never used anesthetic. Maybe they thought that the children did not feel pain. Maybe they thought that a bit of pain built character. Maybe they thought about many other things besides their child charges. Who knows? What I do remember from that first visit was the slow grinding drill that bored into my tooth enamel at about 10 revolutions per minute. I quickly found my back arcing and my hands gripping the armrests of the seat and discovered, to my amusement, that seemed to be the most bearable position to suffer in, as all previous victims had contributed their angst-driven spasms in a similar fashion, thus leaving deep gouges and indentations in the armchair that proved oddly comfortable. I thought that once I'd graduated from elementary school, that my days of pain and suffering at the hands of dentists would be over. But I was wrong. The local dentist, a man by the name of Dr. Scott, was my next pain dealer. I remember being taken to his surgery by my father, and I also remember asking specifically for an anesthetic so that I would not feel any pain. His response, "You don't really need an injection, do you?" Dr. Scott declared in a loud, overbearing voice, looking at me with scorn and derision as if I were some pitiful wimp. Utter bastard. "No," I replied meekly. "Of course, an impressionable kid is going to feel intimidated and respond that way." And so the pain continued. In retrospect, I suspect that Dr. Scott did not give me an injection, but charged my dad for it, or claimed expenses back through the government health system in order to maximize his fees. However, I have no real proof of that, so don't pin me down on it. But needless to say, the pain continued. I think I said that already. The list of dentists grew longer over time, and so too did my reluctance to voluntarily visit one. Once I was in complete control of my own destiny after leaving home, I rarely subjected myself to the hands of a dentist unless it was absolutely necessary. Before moving to Japan, one of the last encounters involved a gardener dentist who was actually out in his rose garden trimming his beloved blooms when I arrived. It did feel a little bit odd not to be greeted by a friendly, smiling receptionist. And even stranger to see the back door of the surgery wide open to the garden. After a brief wait, I called out to see if I could get some attention, and shortly thereafter a man dressed in gardening gear trundled up the pathway and greeted me with a warmth due to a long-lost friend. I'd never seen the man before and grew instantly suspicious. Where were his other patients? Why did his equipment look like it hadn't been updated since before the First World War? What on earth was this going to be about? "Oh," he mumbled, after a brief check of my teeth and a cursory prod around the nether regions of my mouth. "It will have to come out. They will all have to come out. Righto?" What? What did he just say? I asked him for clarification, to which he said, "Well, they're so far gone, it's not much use keeping them in. The extractions shouldn't take that long." What? Extractions? No way. That was probably the shortest amount of time I'd ever spent in a dentist chair, and the quickest exit I'd ever made. I believe I still had the paper bib clipped around my chest as I ran panic-stricken out of his clinic, down the garden path, past the rose bushes, through the rose-covered pergola archway to the safety of the bustling central street. And so, after all that, here I am today, quiet, relaxed, comfortable, and confident. Yes. It will not hurt a bit. I know this because Dr. Togashi is an absolute master at his craft. Once I found Dr. Togashi just around the corner from where we live in Tokyo. I knew he was my dentist, so much so that even when I had a dental emergency whilst I was living in Melbourne briefly for a time, I opted to wait and put up with the discomfort until I could make the trip back to Tokyo to get my mouth sorted out by him. Yes. I'm not sure if this is true for all dentists in Japan, but Dr. Togashi takes an inordinate amount of care with a patient's teeth. He can be a little extreme in the slow pace he works at and the number of visits he requires to complete what other dentists would do in 20 minutes. But now my mouth is a living testament of the best dentistry, period. I know this to be true because on the rare occasions I've gone to visit other dentists, they always stand back and appreciate the work of a true artist. I would flash my pearly teeth in this instance, but modesty does not allow me to do so. At our first meeting, I had prepared myself for another white-knuckled ride. However, my tension soon evaporated when I saw his concern at my concern, and even though there was the language barrier to overcome, he made it clear that he always placed the comfort of the patient first. His initial careful explorations were probably the only thing I felt during the entire procedure. He found cavities for sure, but with each one, before giving an injection, he would apply a dab of anesthetic to the gum with a cotton pad so that I would not even feel the needle being inserted into the gum. Another surprise to me was that each filling undergoes a careful molding process that ensures it fits snugly in the space left by the decayed tooth. To do this, he takes a mold of both the top and the bottom jaws and then sends away to a dental technician. When, after a week, the molds return, there's a shiny metallic filling that fits almost perfectly in the required place. There's a little bit of jiggling along with some filing down. That is all that is required for the perfect filling. Superglue sticks the filling to the base, and that's it. I'm amazed. I still am amazed. It's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Gotta rave about it some more. Fantastic. Yeehaw, I would say. Over the years, I make sure that I go to see him every 3 months because I know it's worth it. He has taken ownership of my teeth to the point that he has even taken out some of the workmanlike brick and mortar fillings from previous dentists and replaced them with gleaming metal or tooth-like acrylic renditions. Taking my previous experiences into account, it's hard to believe that my anxieties and fears regarding dentists have been laid to rest once and for all. And to conclude my story, it is good to see that I'm not the only one that has been converted to the art of Japanese dentistry. A friend of mine remarked just the other day that he had given up going to see his dentist during his annual visits home to Britain, as it was becoming more and more expensive to do so. He booked himself into his local dentist in Japan, and he told me he was surprised by the skill and craft evident. He felt no pain. Thank you for listening.